Every year, Americans spend billions on self-help, self-improvement, and transformation. But is it working? Welcome to the Transformation Truth Podcast, your home for a slightly irreverent and sometimes informed look at what it takes to change, why you don't have it, and what it will take to get it.
Welcome to the Transformation Truth Podcast. I am your host, Abel Villarreal, and to my right is Mr. Darren Hibbs.
Howdy.
Thank you for joining us. So, vacation.
We're excited today.
We
Vacation.
are excited. We're back. No, it's hard to be excited after you've been on vacation for so long.
Spring break just ended, and so we just had vacation.
We're checking back in.
So we're recording this the Monday after our spring break.
It's terrible.
Kind of like
It's terrible. Yeah. Yeah. Still wishing you were in the hotel bed.
Yeah, this needs to be about my fourth cup of coffee right here, and I'm not quite working on that yet.
How's the coffee at the hotel? Did you guys stay at a hotel, or did you stay with some friends? Where'd y'all go?
We stayed at my family, we took off and we went to Kansas City, Missouri. Actually, went to spend a few days at the International House of Prayer. And they have apartments you can rent, or at least they did. They're not going to anymore. We got to stay there. So we stayed in a furnished apartment.
Awesome.
And a hotel.
Awesome.
And the coffee at all those places was good.
Yeah.
That's really the most important thing about any family vacation is the coffee good where you're staying.
Yes.
I'm disappointed now when I go to a hotel and there's not a Keurig in the hotel room.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to live. You always got to take your Keurig with you, like pack it in your bag.
You know, they need to make a travel Keurig.
You would think hotels probably would have already caught on to this, like maybe got with the Keurig
Well,
company.
some hotels have Keurigs.
I have not stayed in those hotels.
Well, it's
privileged, my friend.
It's not like it's like the luxury hotels and things like that. I don't think I've ever seen a high-end hotel that has one. Mm-hmm. It's like just a smattering of like the roadside hotels. Some have them and some don't.
Mm-hmm. So how was Kansas City, Missouri holding it down?
I mean, Kansas City is one of my favorite cities in America. I've been to a lot of cities, and you know, you'd think the Midwest would be kind of a boring, dull place, but it's actually a great city to take a family to, and it's amazing how nice everybody is.
Yeah.
Everyone's just nice. Even at like the lousiest restaurants we went to as a family while we were there, the people were just nice. I mean, they were nice. They were happy about serving their awful food.
Is Kansas City, Missouri not famous for anything? Well, they got barbecue.
Man, I love Kansas City barbecue.
Sort of. I'm not going to convince me that their barbecue's any better than Texas barbecue, but
Fiorella's Jack Stack Barbecue is the best barbecue place in the, and that is coming from a Texan saying that somewhere in Kansas City has better barbecue, but I have not found better barbecue than Fiorella's Jack Stack.
That might be treason.
So good.
That might be treason for Texans.
You try it one time. I mean, it's the gem, it's the jewel of Kansas City in my opinion.
Now, Kansas City, Missouri, we're not Mike and Mike, but I'm just curious now because I never thought about this. But like the Kansas City Royals and Kansas City Chiefs, is that Kansas City, Missouri, or is it Kansas City, Kansas?
Both Kansas City, Missouri.
See, I never did. This is like the first time I'm having revelation this morning.
It's kind of fun. We've gone up there quite a few times, and it's kind of funny. It's like there's definitely like oh no, we're on the Kansas side. You know, it's like the Kansas side is the nice side.
Okay.
But the Missouri side is the side that has most.
Oh, is that the
everything.
situation? They bump into each other there at some point?
Oh yeah, there's a imaginary state line, and so
wow.
I bet there's probably people that have their backyard in Missouri and their front yard in Kansas.
I didn't pay attention like in geography and those classes in high school, so I have no idea what how the United States is even laid out.
Well, you know, Kansas City
is California still right next to New York?
Yeah, no, I mean it used to be, but it's not anymore. Okay. They moved it.
Okay. Back when the Yankees moved, and the Dodgers went from Brooklyn to
that's pretty much what happened.
Los Angeles. Okay,
yeah. Kansas City's like right in the middle of the country. You know, somewhere between Nebraska and Texas.
Nowhere.
Nowhere.
Okay.
It takes a long time to get there.
So
when you're driving.
International House of Prayer. I had a similar vacation. I went to International House of Pancakes.
Yeah, both IHOP.
There
was a lawsuit about that, actually.
No affiliation. Was there like a cease and desist letter?
There was.
But in all fairness, the church was handing out Bibles inside of pancakes.
You know, they had to stop that. They did have to stop that.
So they're good now. They're good now. No, we actually stayed here in town.
Staycations are nice.
Staycation, me and Bree and the kids, and and we went to Franklin Safari. The
Oh
drive-through.
man, I love that place.
That place is outrageous, man. It's crazy.
It's out in the middle of the country.
It is that is literally like in the middle of nowhere.
If you can, it is middle of nowhere, Texas.
It's the only thing for probably about 150 miles that's worth going and actually spending money on around here. But it was fun, man. We had a good time. We, had to explain to our kids, what the kangaroos weren't fighting with each other. They were a little.
Did you throw them in and see who won? Throw the kids in?
No, we didn't do that. We threw them out to the buffalo. Let them amongst the horned animals. Yeah. And they came out of that alive, so it built a lot of character in them. We actually got rammed by some big bison thing.
He actually rammed your car.
It felt like a State Farm commercial for a second. We didn't know what was going to happen.
Oh my goodness.
But yeah, he got jealous because another animal was over, like getting petted by us, and he just came and just rammed our car. And I was like, oh my God, go, 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 go. And so we took off, and I was driving out of that, as fast as I could. And it didn't do any damage. It was weird. But we heard him clearly just hit our car. And so, but we saw, a lot of wildlife out there, ostriches, emus, camels. We saw it all, man. The coolest part, have you been in the baby petting area where you get to pet the baby monkeys and the baby bear cats and the baby lemurs?
I guess they didn't have that last time we went out
I think it's something new. So that was cool. We got climbed on by animals, and I don't think any of us got pooped on, but the lady who was doing kind of the introductions to the animals and stuff like that, she did. So yeah, all part of the job, the script, I guess.
Well, I mean, if you haven't been pooped on by an animal crawling on you, haven't lived.
What kind of a job is that, man? It's a cool job. It's a cool job on most days.
Yeah. So I suppose, it's kind of that if you've got a cool job working with animals climbing on you, you're going to get pooped on. Yeah. That's just part of it. That's work.
So you can love animals. You don't have to love animal poop.
No. I don't know I've ever met anyone that loves animal poop. No. Maybe if you're in the fertilizer business.
I've had a lot of jobs where, bosses pooped on me. I'm not literally. Yeah. But, I didn't love that aspect of it.
Yeah. I've had some jobs where I'm not sure if the boss pooped on me or not. It felt like it. And I'm still not sure if it actually happened.
Have you ever watched the YouTube videos of the people going into their boss's offices and taking a poop on their desks?
No way.
They're out there, man.
Oh my gosh.
They're out there.
You spend too much time on YouTube.
You can find anything on YouTube, and I'm not saying try to go find anything you can. I'm just saying I know it's there. I've never actually sat and tried to find that.
Oh my goodness.
It's out there, buddy. Let me tell you. So
I mean, but then they have videographic evidence of them doing that in their boss's office.
Yeah. So I don't know. Can they file charges against you for that?
I would suppose.
I would think the very least is you're getting fired.
Yeah.
So ask about your pension, I guess, after, but
my goodness, you actually that's like the thieves that go and steal stuff and then take videos and post it to Instagram and YouTube of what they stole.
Yeah, but but I don't think that it was they were filming themselves doing it for the sake of putting it on YouTube. I think that the boss or somebody thought something was up. I don't think it was the first time it had happened. So the one that I'm thinking of, I think the boss ended up sending up a camera in his own office to find out who's pooping in my office.
So he put it on YouTube.
So he probably put it on YouTube. Or somebody got a hold of it, put it on YouTube.
Either
way, it needed to make it to YouTube.
At some point, if you've had multiple poops in your office as an employer, you probably should take a step back. If it's happening multiple times, you should take a step back and evaluate how things are going.
Unless you work with monkeys or lemurs. That just comes with the territory.
Well, I guess that's true. But then, why are you putting a camera in your office to catch them? Kind of expect that. Yeah, if you are an employer and you have multiple instances of people pooping on your desk in your office, it's time to evaluate how things are going with your business.
Yeah, at the very least, sit with your employees and find out, something's making them unhappy,
That's funny.
Yeah. So, and I think about as I met this lady, she's got to really love what she does. She's got to really love working with animals, and it made me really think about this idea that I know you've heard this before because it's such a popular phrase. If you love what you do, You'll never work a day of your life. You've heard that. You've heard this
I've
before.
never worked a day in my life, but I've never loved what I've done.
You're one of the lucky ones, man. I've had to work, haven't loved what I've done, but it's just such an interesting idea. It's so nice, It sounds so good.
It does.
Just love what you do.
I think it's used by people to sell books. It's like, hey, I love what I do,
right,
and you don't, so you should buy my book and figure out.
You should love the way that I love.
Yeah.
You don't have to love what I love.
You're missing something in life,
right?
If you're not loving what you do, like I do. So buy my book. Buy my book and help me love my life even more.
And that's probably why. It's probably where that phrase came from. But it's just interesting. It makes into every one of our minds. As I remember moments in my life when I found myself unemployed, or I found myself just in spots where I needed to really try to come up with some kind of calling or purpose for myself, and that's always the first place your mind goes. Like, well, what do I love doing? What won't I mind doing? And then I realized, like, I mind doing everything. Like, there's nothing I really want to do forever. There's things I don't mind doing for a while. It took me a long time to settle down with any job. I think that probably the average time I've spent on any job was right around maybe like 2 years.
Yeah.
So, and that was when I finally would get bored. And I'd say, okay,
I think I've made it to 4 with any one company.
I've made it past 2. The average is 2. So, and how many jobs did I hold that were like a week long versus the ones that were like 5 years long? But I'm saying, yeah, it's tough, man. You kind of you hit that wall, and you want to move on. You want to do something else, I think we fool ourselves. It's kind of a lie in our hearts that the reason why we don't like it where we're at is because we should be somewhere else, or we should be doing something that we really love to do. And so I really I read an article this past week. It was on Forbes website.
Forbes Contributor Network.
Which
is generally a black hole of meaningless, mindless content, but this is actually very good.
Yeah, you want to take a stab at her last name, Chrissy
Skivik.
Yeah, forgive us.
Skivike. Chrissy. How can you have such a normal first name?
Chrissy, yeah.
I mean, if you're going to have a last name like that, then, your first name should be like Dvorak or something.
Yeah, Chrissy Skivike. We'll go with that. She writes this really great article.
Good article, Chrissy. I'm sorry about your name.
Yeah, we're sorry that we're not pronouncing it properly. It's the same world I live in with my last name. I don't even pronounce my own last name properly, so don't be offended. Yeah, so she says this is bad career advice. Career advice, She quotes, and I forget who the writer is that she quotes, but she talks about how Johnny Ramone, the guitarist for the Ramones, even said himself that being a guitar player is a pretty good gig, but at the end of the day, it also sucked because it was just another job.
Yeah.
I think that if when we pursue the things that we love to do, as Chrissy so eloquently describes it, that we end up finding, we have deadlines, we have bosses to report to, even if it's something that we love.
So, going with that, what if you're a drummer and you don't want to work, you just want to bang on this drum all day? What happens when that becomes your work?
You write a song about it.
Yeah, but what happens when drumming becomes work? What do you do?
Yeah, I'm sure he got sick of singing that song because he was getting paid for it.
Yeah.
And he was like, I've got to sing this stupid song. There had to come a point where they were like, his audience was like, play, I don't want to work.
I mean, is it kind of like, after a while, after drumming becomes your work?
Yeah.
That you say, I don't want to drum, I just want to sell insurance all day? I mean...
I don't know. It may very well... That actually might have been his fate. I think he did. I think he did go sell insurance after that song.
Probably most washed-up musicians go sell insurance.
At the very least, he went and sold drums.
Yeah.
That would be the gig. Okay, you've just convinced everybody not to work, but to play drums all day. And then you come up with your own drum line.
Heck yeah.
Why not?
If he was selling insurance and now he's getting a new idea from watching this podcast, we want a little cut of that.
Please, remember us. Somebody remember us. Anybody. Yeah, it's just such a bad career move if what you think is, hey, I don't know what to do with my life. So let me just pick something I love doing and then make it a job. Because what the approach that she takes in describing this is that at some point it's just going to become another job. You're not going to find, if what you're thinking is that is pursuing that's going to free you.
Yeah.
That you're actually going to find yourself back in another cage,
Yeah.
She refers to herself as a writing monkey, that's what she does. Because she loves to write, but she finds herself working for other people so that she can make money writing. And she says, I find myself like the executive chef, at the end of the day, who comes home and then eats just frozen meals and, is making sandwiches out of the fridge because he's been cooking all day long. Last thing he wants to do is come home and cook some gourmet meal for himself. So she's like, I come home and the last thing I'm really thinking about is writing for fun because I've just been writing for 8 hours.
How many landscapers have you seen do beautiful jobs with other people's houses and you have no idea where they live. They will not tell you where they live because theirs is like the most overgrown, trashy yard in the neighborhood.
Can I mail you a check? No. No.
I'll just come by. I'll come by and pick it up.
I'm here next week. Yeah, that's funny, man. You probably would never hire them based on their yard's probably not their resume.
Yeah.
It's always, I do the rest of the block, let me in here. But
I actually looked that up one time. Is in Norm Abram, New Yankee Workshop, Bob Vila's right-hand guy, did all these woodworking projects. He didn't make anything for his own home.
No.
He hired contractors for everything.
His wife was probably just mad every day, When are you going to do this for me?
Yeah, you built all that stuff for them. When are we going to get some? Yeah, I'm not doing that.
So you write.
I write.
So what has been your experience with doing what you love? Obviously, you love writing.
Writing is not that much fun for me. Having a published book, that's kind of fun. Like having the finished product in hand is fun. And sometimes the writing can be fun. It's really the fun part is getting the ideas out of your head onto the page. And so most of the time, the ideas don't come out of your head the way you'd like. Mm-hmm. And so that's not so much fun, but having the freedom to do all that is a lot of fun. But then in reality, like if you're writing books, and it doesn't matter if you're self-published, if you've got a traditional publisher or anything, you've got a lot of marketing to do, and you got a lot of accounting to do. Mm-hmm. And accounting for book publishing is the largest pain in the butt I've ever had to do. I worked for a construction company, and I was a project manager before all this, and I had to do cost accounting for millions and millions of tens of millions of dollars of construction projects where there's all sorts of little things flying around, and the accounting for that, and that's one of the most difficult accountings out there. Mm-hmm. Doing accounting for book publishing is more of a pain, mm-hmm. and so I do get to do some of the things I love, but there's so many unlovable things about it.
Yeah, so
I don't like marketing for books.
I get to experience the fun part of writing books because I've got countless numbers of notes, like on my iPhone, of ideas and things that I have.
Yeah.
It's fun to jot those down, but I've never followed up on a single one of them. So I'm experiencing the fun side of it.
You should just stop right there.
Just stop
right there.
It's fun to do that.
Yeah.
These ideas are never going to go anywhere.
It's a lot more fun to have about books than it is to have books. In some ways,
yeah, I've got a ton of about books, but I've got no books, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah,
I'm okay with that. I love the idea of writing a book. I'm definitely not in love with sitting down and writing a book. So and then obviously all the things I've never considered, that you experience every single day. What's your when you really think about it, what's in your heart, man? Like what's your purpose for writing? Like what's the deeper love inside of you for writing books? What's the deeper inspiration for you to go and do this?
I want to make $1 million.
Okay,
that's all it is. I'm a sellout. That's
good.
All it is.
No, good. Yeah.
I picked a
Tangible.
horrible genre to sell out to. Christian nonfiction is about the worst sellout industry.
Have you ever been to the discount section of any bookstore?
I would love to make it into the discount section of any bookstore. If you have a discount
goals.
section,
It's all about goals.
You can have my books. Put them there, please.
It's all about goals. Pretty tangible, I think, at some point to be on the discount for me. I think about what I do each day, working with men in recovery, and it's so interesting because I've only been doing this for 2.5 years.
Yeah.
So I've already passed the 2-year mark
You've made it. You've arrived.
Made it past the 2-year mark there, at least the average time that I'll spend at a job. No, I love going to my job. I love what I do. Do I love working? No, I hate working, man. I do. I wish that I didn't feel that way.
Scandalous.
But yeah, I wish I didn't feel that way. But I can't stand it. I don't like work. I don't look to the things that I love to get me out of bed and to get me where I need to be. I handle my responsibilities. And so my responsibility as the operations director for a recovery center is to be there each day to help and support and teach and train and guide and counsel these men. And so that's what I look to. Those are my responsibilities. It just happens to be that when I get to work, when I'm talking with these men, when I'm hearing them open up, when I'm able to pour into them, that I find myself loving what I do, you know? And so I'm not trying to pursue something that I love in my heart. I'm handling the responsibility that's before me and end up being totally in love with what it is that I do. And I think that we lose sight of that so often. And so I hear from you, really, as you got that book in your hand, as you're handing it to somebody who wants to know more about the subject matter of what you've just written about to enrich their own lives. I mean, how much that must mean to you. How much you must love that moment, you know, and knowing that that's exactly why you do it, to enrich somebody else's life, to help somebody grow.
You know, it's difficult because it's even in that moment where you have that published book, and most authors say, you know, the moment that it arrives via FedEx or whatever, and you open that book and you see it for the first time, you hold it, and you've got this physical representation of all of these thoughts that have been banging around in your head for a long time. It's this surreal, just very satisfying moment. But then, you know, and anybody has experienced this, and most people think that, you know, becoming a published author is, at least in America, you know, that's kind of like you've made it somewhere. And in reality, you think that will, you know, be some kind of satisfying thing, but then you really have no idea how many people even read your books. Mm-hmm. You know, you have no idea whether it matters to them, because, you know, even if you're someone that's got a book and you've got, you know, you've sold thousands of copies, you probably have maybe 50 reviews on Amazon. If you've sold a few thousand copies, if you've sold a few million, you know, I mean, if you've sold a few million copies, you probably have 1,000 reviews on Amazon. Right. So it's like the lion's share of people, you have no idea. You get nothing. You get nothing back other than a little bit of money from each book. But you feel like, hey, I'm going to help some people, but you never know if you're helping. You never know. You never get feedback from that kind of stuff. And so even in getting to, you know, thinking that you're going to love what you do, if you're finding your value in love, in you know, doing what you love, you're going to fall short. It's going to stab you in the back.
Yeah, and so one of the points that Chrissy brings out, she says that really we shouldn't be asking ourselves, what do we love, but how do you define work?
Yeah.
What is work to you? What's the payoff? What is it that you do, and what part of you is it enriching? You know, as you do it. That's more. I think that's definitely. I agree with her. That's the better focus. What is work to you? And so for those of us who are Christians, we have to ask ourselves the same thing, because I think that our greater purpose in life is tied in to not what we think is work. How do we define work? But what does God define as work? What does God say is work for our lives? And it's so interesting, especially, you know, in the line of work that I do. That I deal with men who are spending a year of their lives apart from the world, apart from their career direction, apart from even families. And so they're considering this whole time that they're with us, they're considering, what do I do next? What do I do next? Where is this going? And so it's a natural question for their hearts to come to me and say, hey, well, what do I do now?
Yeah.
Or what do I do after this is done? And they'll always throw out really great ideas. It's funny how saved everybody's ideas get, you know. I'm gonna keep doing this, but I'm gonna make sure that I give 20% back to the church, or I'm gonna start a landscaping business, but I'm gonna specialize in helping churches with their. I mean, you know what?
That's like the worst idea. It's like, if you want to get paid at anything, Don't do it for churches. If you want someone to pay you, don't work for a church.
No,
don't be a contractor or anything like that. Work for a church.
But they always come with those ideas. I'm going to work for churches for free. And it's like, okay. So it's always the question of what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And what I'm trying to always get these men to focus in on, and speaking to my own heart as well, is not to focus on what to do, but rather what has God done in you, and then you'll see that it's God who's already working on your behalf. Mm-hmm. He's the one who's already opening up the doors. He's the one who's already doing a work in your heart today, so that tomorrow won't be a surprise for you. You won't need to know what tomorrow brings. And Jesus says this, and saying, don't worry about tomorrow. What has worry added? Worry hasn't added a single second to your life. I mean, it's just focus on where God has you today. I think it's such an important principle. And Paul says it in Ephesians chapter 2 and verse 8. It says, "For it is by grace you have been saved through faith, and this not from yourselves. It is a gift of God, not by works, so that no one can boast. For we are God's handiwork, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared in advance for us to do." And that's such an important part of the gospel, and what Christians should believe is that just because you got saved yesterday doesn't mean you need to try to find something to do today, or that God is scrambling trying to find you something to do. No, God already knew in advance where you would be today and what the work it was He needed to do in you today to get you to tomorrow, so that tomorrow He could do a work in you, so that the day after that He could do a work in you. What ends up happening is, as you allow God to work in you, you find yourself in positions. You find yourself in certain arenas and doing certain things that you look at and then say, man, I could have never seen myself doing this. I could have never imagined this for myself. I would have never even looked at this thing as something I would have enjoyed, a week ago, a month ago, a year ago. But here I find myself doing this, and this is the most fulfilling thing I've ever done with my life. That's the most important thing. We don't have to define for ourselves what's work. But simply trusting that by God's grace, that He's already predestined, He's already decided in advance to do a work in you, you'll find yourself doing that work and feeling fulfilled according to who He is and by His grace, not by what you need to try to do or focus on, or even what you love to do. You could absolutely hate what you do and then find things in it that you really love. I've been in that situation before. Having a job I didn't really.
I've been in situations where I've been in situations where I hate the situation of I have to find something, otherwise I go crazy.
Yeah, and whether it's making $1 million, we can live with that.
That one wasn't so hard. Hadn't happened yet, but I imagine it wouldn't be so hard.
There's those little moments, man. On a job, building a relationship with somebody you would have never normally. I've been in that situation so many times. I've made so many friendships at jobs that I really hated with people who I would have never, ever, ever associated with in life, except for being in that situation and found out, man, these are great people.
I think that's so many times we. Even the lie of this statement, is if you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life, is where it goes wrong is so many people are trying to find some kind of fulfillment in what they do, in their work. Yeah. And really trying to find fulfillment there, it's always a fool's errand, because there's always going to be so much, even if you do what you love, there's always going to be so much of it that you don't love. Yeah. And really our fulfillment, it comes from, first and foremost, having this relationship with God. And I think it's indicative of what Jesus says, I no longer call you servants. I no longer call you hired help. I call you friends. Mm-hmm. And it's that friendship relationship. It's being in that relationship where we don't have to work, where, a true friend is not a friend because you work for them. Someone who you pay is not really your friend. They're your employee. Right. Now, they may become your friend, but it's a separate thing entirely from the fact that you're paying them. Right. And so, when you're working, you're always trying to accomplish something and do something, and there may be little moments of fulfillment, but in the end, it leaves you empty. Right. And it's those relationships, starting first with that relationship with Jesus, mm-hmm. that actually fulfills us. Yeah. And so many people end up going to church and thinking, well, if I, do all these good things, if I volunteer at church and I do all this kind of stuff, then I'll be fulfilled because
Right.
I'll be doing something awesome for God and doing something, even like you're saying with these recovery center guys, even the idea of doing something awesome for God will always leave you empty because it falls short of that relational connection.
Right.
And that's the only place where we're ever really fulfilled.
Right. And so the trap that I'll see people fall into at church is they'll get involved for the sake of getting involved, and then they end up burning out because they're not. It's not where they were supposed to be. It's so easy to fall in that trap. But when God will always put something before us, and it's up to us to say yes or no. But I've said no to a lot of things that I'm sure God thought were going to be wonderful for me, and I've said yes to a lot of things that I thought were going to be wonderful for me, and that God said no. I mean, that's absolutely not the direction I want you to go. But because I was relying on myself, rather than learning the most important principle of Christianity, it's relying on God, trusting in Him, listening to Him, and so as I think about not looking to myself to define work. But rather to look to God and say, God, what do you want as work for my life? Do we begin to find ourselves in a position where we're willing to submit ourselves to whatever God has decided for us? And so, the scripture later on in the same book of Ephesians, is this chapter 5, in verse 23, when it says, whatever you do, work at it with all your heart, as working for the Lord, not for men, I think really speaks to the submission of our hearts to say, God, I'm not doing what I'm doing because I love it.
Yeah.
I'm not doing what I'm doing because I think this is what's going to bring fulfillment, but I'm doing it because it's what I believe you have called me to do. And when I find my heart submitted to you, it doesn't matter the circumstances, the situations that surround the responsibility in which you've called me to. I might not. This person may treat me badly. That's here in the same. On the same job site as me. And my boss might even not be might not act that great toward me. But when I believe and I know in my heart that this is where you've called me, then I believe this is where you can do your greatest work, and that other person's life can be affected. Your life will definitely be affected. But what it does is it transforms everybody. There's transformation that occurs there on the job site when you're allowing yourself to be submitted enough to the Lord that you actually let the Lord show up.
Yeah.
And it's Him who you're doing your work to. Then the excellence of Jesus begins to shine out of you, and everybody around you begins to see that. And what I've found is that actually creates more opportunity. God might allow you to be somewhere just to connect you with someone so that He might carry you in a whole other direction that you could have never created for yourself. So my advice, my career advice, is wherever you're at today, don't go looking for change. Wherever you're at today, just submit yourself to where you are today. And especially if you're a Christian, what that says of your heart is that you trust God. You trust God with where you're at. It didn't take Him by surprise that you are where you are today. Just pray to God wherever you are and say, Lord, this is where I am today. And I know that nothing is by coincidence, but that you have beautifully orchestrated my life. And so do your greatest work with where I am today. Teach my heart what you want to today with the people who are around me today, and that's where you're going to find the most fulfillment. That's where you're gonna feel most at peace with where you're at today, and I believe that ultimately will take you where it is that God wants you to go.
Well, with that, we do encourage you, seek the Lord and find out where He wants you, and that's one thing I think that we miss a lot is having a sense of calling. It's something that, people only use generally in the ministry world is I feel called to do this, I feel called to do that. Or when it's time to take the youth group to Colorado on a ski trip, I feel called to take the youth group, be a chaperone.
Don't we all?
But we really can have a sense of calling, and this scripture right here in Ephesians, says that whatever you're doing, do it to the Lord, do it for Him. The Lord can call us into whatever we need to do. And that's where we're going to find that fulfillment is when we are in relationship with Him, in relationship with others, and in the context of that, then we'll find things that we love in the midst of work.
Yeah.
And not really the other way around.
Yeah.
It doesn't really work the other way around. But if you'd like to buy the book that we have coming out on how you can enjoy what you do. Actually, we're not doing that.
No,
we haven't figured out we haven't figured out the right way to sell out yet. But as soon as we figure it out,
we're gonna figure it out.
We'll be on top of that.
Yeah.
Until then, check us out on transformationtruth.net. No, Transformation Podcast. I'm just going to put it along the bottom because I can't even remember the name of our website right now. That's pretty terrible.
Okay.
But you can find us on iTunes. It's the Transformation Truth Podcast.
We're okay with that.
Connect with us on Twitter. At some point, there will be like a thing down here. Maybe our editor will put it over our faces.
As long as it just says donate.
Yeah, you can donate if you want to. I don't know how you would figure out how to donate to us because I don't want you to see what my yard looks like, so I'm not giving you my address.
Just a check.
Yeah.
We'll do what everybody else does. We'll just set up a P.O. box.
That works.
That
works.
Then they can just judge us according to whatever.
What if the P.O. box looks lousy?
That's what I'm thinking. I mean, whatever the government has done with that building, don't look at us.
Well, come on. Have you ever seen clean. A post office that was well landscaped?
Never seen one that was well landscaped. Never seen one that didn't make you feel like you were being checked into like an institution.
I've never seen a nice post. How is it that they can not have nice buildings? It's not that hard to build.
The people are nice. We love you, post office people. I get scared when I walk into your buildings.
That's true.
Scary.
With that, we'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.